women. President Trump leads by, it's 1 point, so it's in the margin of error, but leading among women, that's a big deal. Flip over to 18 to 34, Trump's leading by 11. Independents, Trump's leading by 9.
Our new CBS News poll found that registered voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania believe that they would be financially better off if Trump wins. How do you explain that?
Going to be careful because we're talking about registered voters. We're talking about a candidate. Now, obviously, the former president who's now a candidate. I got to be mindful of the Hatch Act, and so can't speak to that specifically. But what I will say more broadly is we understand what Americans have gone through. We understand that the pandemic was a heavy, heavy burden on Americans. We understand that Putin's aggression into Ukraine caused inflation to rise, right? Pandemic caused inflation to rise, caused damages to the supply chain. And so that's why the president took action. The American Rescue Plan obviously was incredibly important in turning the economy around, dealing with the supply chains. And we also understand that prices are still too high. They're still too high. So this is why you hear us talk about junk fees. This is why you hear us talk about lowering prescription drugs. It is important making sure that big corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. And so we're going to do more work, and we're hoping that message gets through to the American people. That's why you've seen the president in New Hampshire, in Las Vegas, in Madison, Wisconsin, laying down that message directly to the American people.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I gotta tell you guys, the Biden administration and the mainstream liberal media, they are not having a good time coping with reality. Reality that everything that they threw at Trump, the political indictments, the nonstop Trump deranged coverage in the media, smearing the guy as an insurrectionist, a threat to democracy, the Antichrist, all the things they said, right? Taking everything that he says out of context and make it seem like the guy is Hitler, right? I mean, they have called him Hitler, okay? All of these things are not enough to sway voters away from the reality that the Biden administration is terrible, okay? That the country is in a much worse place under Biden than it was under Trump. And the funny part about it, the most hilarious part, is that the affirmative action press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, who we know for a fact is affirmative action because the Biden administration wants to fire her, but they can't because she's black, she's lesbian, and she's a woman, so she has too many infinity stones of wokeness to fire her without major backlash. This woman can't even properly explain and push propaganda in a way that makes the administration look good. Again, when confronted on the fact that the polls are showing that people don't really like Bidenomics, right, it's making their lives worse, she goes on to say, well, Putin is the reason why we have inflation and the supply chain crisis, okay? And then she talks about the pandemic as well, too, contributing to it. But then she goes on to say, well, this is why the Biden administration passed the American Rescue Plan, which is funny because the American Rescue Plan came before Putin invaded Ukraine. So we had the inflation problem before Putin invaded Ukraine. So Putin did not cause inflation. Putin did not cause the supply chain crisis. In fact, it's the American Rescue Plan that I will argue that actually really contributed to inflation in the supply chain crisis the most, because the U.S. government printing trillions of dollars out of thin air artificially inflated demand to the point where it placed pressure on the supply chain, a supply chain that already was being hurt by the fact that people were being paid to sit home and to not work. It place more pressure on them due to that elevated demand and not having enough workers to meet the demand for goods and services. Hence the inflation, because we had too much money chasing too few goods and services to account for the money and the demand for the goods and services. Again, this is like the textbook definition of inflation. But again, because Karine Jean-Pierre, just like the bombshell report stated, she doesn't really fundamentally understand these issues. She doesn't really know anything. She can't even spin propaganda correctly, right? She can't even do it, okay? It's just so funny to watch. And what's funnier is this is something that CNN can't believe, right? Their own poll is telling them that, voters believe that the country was in a much better place under Trump than Biden, and you have Trump deranged CNN hosts, propagandists like Jim Acosta refusing to accept reality and raging over the fact that the American people think that things were better under Trump than Biden, okay? And I want to react to this coping session from CNN because it's hilarious to watch as these propagandists realize that propaganda is not working. So I want to talk about it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Aura. Googling yourself is probably one of the most uncomfortable things that you can do. It is very unsettling to type your name in a web browser and to quickly see that all of your sensitive and private information is out there on the internet for the world to see. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anybody that wants to target you. Your full name, email, home address, phone number is all out there for the world to see. This is why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps me reduce how much spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use my information in order to get access to my social media accounts, bank account, and other sensitive information. I don't know if you saw this, but AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records from both existing and former customers were released on the dark web. They recommend those that were affected to use strong passwords, to monitor account activity, and to consider credit freezes or fraud alerts from credit bureaus. Well, the good news is that Aura does all of this for me. And best of all, I don't have to download several different apps because a company couldn't keep my data secure. If my info was compromised in the AT&T data breach, I wouldn't worry because Aura is doing all the hard work behind the scenes in order to keep me safe. I value my privacy and I value yours. So you can go to aura.com/BCP to start your 2-week free trial. Also, the link is below in the description.
New CNN poll showing Trump with this lead over Biden. I mean, a lot of Democrats looked at this and spit out their coffee on Sunday morning. The CBS Battleground poll over the week did show a tight race in multiple swing states. So the numbers are all over the place. Right. It's April, and people say it's April, it's early. But May, it's almost May. Yeah. May is not that early.
There's still 6 months left. I did not spit out my coffee. I had a very nice, calming cup of coffee yesterday, even after seeing this poll. Because look, the trend with all of the other national polls is that the race is tightening. A lot of the other national polls, including the one that you mentioned, CBS, has Joe Biden either tied or ahead 2 or 3 points. The CBS poll had Joe Biden ahead in Michigan, tied in all of the other battleground states.
Yeah, so again, this is very misleading. Well, the reason why is because the poll that they're citing here, again, they're not even looking at their own damn poll because they know how bad their poll is, right? So they're looking at somebody else's poll. And this poll right here is one of Biden's better polls. But notice how the only swing states that are being polled in the CBS News poll are the swing states where it's actually competitive. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Michigan and Wisconsin, Biden should really be worried about because of the pro-Palestine vote, right? These people that are saying, hey, we're going to vote uncommitted, right? And we're not going to vote for Joe Biden. A significant amount of those people showed up in Michigan and Wisconsin, okay? So he should really worry about those states. But anyways, these are not the only swing states. If you look at the swing state polls from other swing states like North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, etc., Trump is up big, right? He's up big, okay? So this idea that, oh, well, Biden is up over Trump in one of the swing states and tied with Trump and all the rest, that's not true, right? That's actually not true because in a vast majority of the swing states, Trump is up. I mean, there have been numerous polls showing Trump is dominating across the board. In fact, I believe according to Real Clear Politics in swing states, Trump is up about 3.8 percentage points on average, okay? So again, Trump is winning when it comes to the swing states. Now, also, this woman said that, well, polls are showing that the race is tightening. Well, that is true to a certain extent, but a lot of that can be attributed to the post-State of the Union bump that Biden got because he went out and did the bare minimum, which was to read off of a teleprompter for an hour straight. And, you know, he may have got somewhat of a boost from that. Also, he's been spending a lot of money in ads and doing a lot of campaigning. So you're going to see some natural fluctuations in the polls, right? But what you should pay attention to is the overall trend. The overall trend is that Trump is on the up and up, and I think that Trump is going to break out here soon, and it's going to get to the point where it's going to be a runaway for Trump if something doesn't change for Biden. I mean, we just saw another poll from Harvard-Harris come out showing Trump up 7. So this comes out after the CNN poll showing Trump up 9. right? So again, what I was telling you guys, which is that Trump is probably going to break out here soon, is happening. Okay, it is. And again, this is cope here from this Democrat over the fact that, again, people just are not feeling the Biden administration.
What the Biden campaign is doing is the smart thing to do, which is they are rolling up their sleeves, they're doing the work, they are having Joe Biden go to all the battleground states. He is whipping up a storm in terms of the travel that he is doing, going around telling all of the Americans about the accomplishments, what he has done, what he's going to do, while Donald Trump is stuck in a court.
Well, I mean, that's what they want, right? This is how they rigged the game, okay? Oh, all these political indictments against Trump, all these persecutions. Oh, well, he has to be stuck in court while Biden is campaigning. But see, here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Nobody likes Biden and nobody likes Kamala, right? So they can campaign all they want, but if the people that are showing up really don't like them, or he's not generating any type of significant excitement or having people change their minds, then it doesn't really matter, okay? And we all know that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are two of the most unpopular politicians in the country, period. So again, I'm not sure if it actually really helps for Biden to do the campaigning. It might actually be hurting him. I'm not sure. I'm just saying, you know, you see this guy in person, you see how old and frail he is. And then if you listen to Kamala and you see how awkward she is, and she's just this messed up as Joe Biden, it doesn't inspire much confidence, right? It really doesn't.
The other thing that's in that poll, we're out of time, but the other thing that's in that poll is it shows that a lot of Americans view Donald Trump's presidency as a success
and Biden's as a failure,
which is extraordinary given the fact that 1 million people died from COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
but look,
see, again, this is the part about Jim Acosta and the mainstream liberal media that really gets me, right? It really irks my nerves. They think that you're stupid, right? This guy said, well, I can't believe that people think that Trump's presidency is a success and Biden's is a failure when over 1 million people died from COVID. Well, whose fault was that? Because first and foremost, 1 million people did not die from COVID under Trump. Okay, I don't know where he pulled that number from. Okay, but 1 million people did not die from COVID under Trump. Now, when you look at Trump and Biden's presidency and the COVID deaths, then under Biden, we had more COVID deaths than Trump, okay? So if you want to talk about the facts and COVID deaths, you really need to be looking at the Biden administration, because even with the vaccines, Biden accumulated more deaths under his administration than Trump's. But they never use that against him. Everything's Trump's fault. But they can't articulate what would a Democrat have done differently than Trump that would have saved lives. You never hear them articulate that, because for the most part, Trump allowed Democrat states to do what they want to do. If Democrat states wanted to shut down, hey, he didn't stand in the way of that. And that is something that he receives a whole lot of criticism for, right? Trump receives a whole lot of criticism from the right for not being more authoritarian in how states handled the pandemic, forcing Democrat states to stay open. He said, okay, I'm going to let you handle it the way you want to handle it. Lo and behold, you have states like New York, people like Cuomo mishandling the crisis, stuffing a bunch of grandmas with COVID into a nursing home, and then a bunch of them dying, and then the mainstream media pointing the finger at Trump, right? When the people are dying because of Democrat policies. See, again, they say this type of stuff because they think you're stupid. Everybody knows that what happened during COVID, you can't blame Trump for that. It's not Trump's fault. So that's why when everybody evaluates Trump's presidency, no serious person looks at what happened under COVID, considering how COVID was quite literally once in a lifetime type of thing, in which you had circumstances that we have never dealt with as a country. The world has never dealt with. But when we did get the data on COVID showing that, hey, you know, maybe it's not as serious as we once thought, the Biden administration doubled down on policies that were ineffective, like the lockdowns, like the government spending, like remote learning in school, like paying people not to work. They doubled down on things when they should have been reversing these things early on in 2021. That's what we should have been doing. But no, Democrats doubled and tripled down on it. And that is why the country is currently in the state that it is right now. If Democrats had refused to spend that money, if they had opened back up the economy, if they had sent kids back to school, if you had returned back to normal at the beginning of 2021, then I don't think we'd be dealing with the problem as much as we're dealing with it right now. Also, if the Feds would have increased interest rates at that time as well, too, to compensate, it would have been rough initially, but we would not be in the situation that we're in right now. It would not be nearly as bad. But again, according to Jim Acosta, how can people think that Trump's economy is better than Biden's, or that things were better under Trump than Biden? Well, because nobody that is serious is evaluating Trump's presidency based off what happened during COVID. But if you look at what happened before COVID, everybody knows that we didn't have any new wars. The economy was better. The border was more secure. Crime was out of control. We just simply was in a much better situation, period.
Based on this poll, if the election were held today, Donald Trump would go from the courthouse to the White House. No questions asked.
But guess what, Alice? It's not today.
But you look at this.
But what's remarkable, his presidency ended with an insurrection at the Capitol.
Yeah.
Maria,
Yeah.
how is it that Democrats have not been able to get that message across to voters, and that they can't break through this short-term memory list?
Well, here's the thing. It's not a short-term memory thing. These people keep trying to, again, pretend like voters are dumb, and then they wonder why voters don't respond the way that they think voters should respond. People don't care. Nobody gives a damn. You cannot sit here and allow the country to burn, literally, under the BLM riots, under the Roe v. Wade riots, now with the pro-Palestine riots, okay? And you've been endorsing all this stuff for the most part, but try to make a big deal out of one day, out of January 6th, as if this was something we never seen before. Well, quite literally, we have been witnessing mass acts of political violence from the left leading up into January 6th. Yeah, I think people realizing that, hey, the January 6th narrative is overblown. Especially when you see all the political violence happening in this country from the left that the mainstream liberal media doesn't care about. It's not that voters have short-term memories. It's just that most rational people can see that, oh, well, January 6th, it's like, it wasn't great. But again, I mean, look at everything else that's happening. And y'all are obsessed with this. It's just hilarious, right? It really is. They're upset that the propaganda isn't working. Right. And that's why this guy can't believe it. He's in disbelief. I can't believe it. Our January 6th propaganda isn't working.
Well, again, I will look at the other polls that actually show Democrats have been able to break through. And let's remember, Jim, in 2022, everyone thought that a huge red wave was going to happen. Everyone was showing these exact same kinds of polls where the economy was the #1 issue, when in fact a lot of Americans put democracy and rights and freedoms
a little too comfortable
up front
Trump world?
in addition to the economy.
Well, I don't think that the Trump world should get too comfortable. But again, in 2022, that was post-Dobbs. Okay, so now we live in a world where, again, abortion is a major voting factor. And I hope that this is actually baked into the polls, right? I'm hoping that it is. I'm hoping that we don't get what happened in 2022, which is this surge of young thoughts that come out to the poll and to vote to keep their right to abortion. I hope that that's not the case. I hope that's already baked in. But this is why Trump is smartly moderating on the issue, because, again, we're trying to avoid that. So, again, that could be an outlier, right? That could be a factor that could most certainly affect the election. But, we'll see, okay? We'll see.
I think the other crosstabs to look at in this poll are the fact that Biden is underwater and has strong disapproval ratings, and how he's handled the economy. And this situation with Gaza and Israel is going to really damage him.
It's a challenge right now. It's not a threat.
When I talked to a lot of Democratic operatives over the weekend, in office, out of office, they were all worried about that one issue. We'll keep talking about it. All right, Maria, Alice.
Yeah, they should be worried. Like I told you guys from the beginning when that conflict happened, I was like, yo, this is the Achilles heel of the Democrat Party, right? It really is. Okay, this conflict is going to destroy the party. I said it from the beginning, and then lo and behold, what? 7-8 months now, right? Look what's happening. The party's on the verge of collapse. So, hey, the mainstream liberal media, they're coping with the reality that their propaganda isn't working, and it's pretty hilarious to watch. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.